this is a good opportunity as any for me to give you all some group feedback on the first assignment. And this is for a few reasons. One is there's common themes that run all the way through, and I've spoken to each of you in the audio feedback in Moodle on some of these issues, but these issues are ones that come up again and again and again, and I think it's something that most people are struggling with, and therefore it's useful to be able to talk to everyone about it. And it's also useful because the purpose of a degree program is not just to, make you jump through hoops. It's also a diagnostic process where we try and look at what skills you lack and the skills that you need going forward. So this is a attempt to try and help you build some of those foundation skills, not just in legal research, but just legal analysis skills generally that you will need going forward. So here we go. There are two things that I think are universal to most of the papers, including the good ones, but also the not so good ones. And one of them is about getting to the point, and the other is about critical analysis. So the getting to the point one I'll deal with first. The critical analysis one is a little more complex, and I'll deal with next. So getting to the point. This has been a problem I've seen again and again and again all the way through, and I know there are reasons for it, and I've been teaching students for over 20 years now, so this is nothing that's new to me. But so don't feel as though this is something that is shocking or unique to you or your peers. It's something students always struggle with, and we all struggle with going through life. It's getting to the point. And what you need to be able to do, any paper or an exam, any form of assessment, is come straight to the point at the very beginning and say, this is what it's about, this is where I'm going, and really hammer the point home. And that's true in anything, even an exam, but it's especially true in an assignment which is fundamentally about, this is what my plan is. Please give me some feedback on my plan. And it's sad, not surprising, I suppose, but not sad, that in many cases there's extreme limits to what I could give people in terms of feedback on their plans and about their approach to analysis, because they didn't give me very much. There wasn't very much there on the page, and I know there are reasons for it. Okay, so there are three core reasons under this why people have difficulty getting to the point, and it's what I call preambling. It's always hard to get something started, right? Anything is like, well, where do you start? Where do you start unrolling the ball of string? But a lot of students do this. They start by saying, well, there's this, and there's that, and there's this, and there's been some other things, and there's this, and whatever. And they're halfway through the page, or over the first page, before they actually get to, what is this all about? Now, the sad truth is, that stuff is just filler. It's worth nothing. Nothing at all. You might as well just throw those pages away. Because unless you're actually getting into the analysis, you're actually getting into what it is you're doing, there's no point to it. So why do we do it? Why do we spend this time basically wasting your own time and everyone else's time, the marker's time, and most importantly, wasting your opportunity to get marks? And why is it a problem? And I think, I know I use metaphors a lot, but hey, I'm trained as a lawyer, and law is all about metaphors, so that's what you're going to get. It's a bit like if you had 5 minutes to talk to Steven Spielberg to pitch your new film idea. What do? Do you go in to see Mr. Spielberg and say, well, I've got this idea for a film. Now, a film is a form of entertainment that we use where we film certain scenes using actors, and then we assemble those through the editing process. And do you do that? Do you explain to him what he already knows and what the background is? Or do you say this is Space Monkeys meets Godzilla with Mission Impossible, or whatever crazy idea it is that you're pitching? You go straight to the pitch. And the question then is, why don't we do that? Why do we feel this need to sort of hedge around the issue and just edge around without actually coming to the point? Well, okay, there's a few things I think that cause this. First of all, it's a bad habit that we've learnt and that has been reinforced through our past educational experiences. Often we get rewarded for this, and I think exams, probably are a situation where you can get rewarded for this, where you just sort of throw the shotgun out there and you say, look, if I just pick up enough keywords, enough points, maybe enough references, enough case names, this will get me enough points to get through. And look, to a certain extent that is true, and to a certain extent even in this exercise, there were people who got through and passed who, if I was going to be rigorous about it, or if I was going to be an employer looking at your performance, I would not have been so tolerant, right? There is an extent of which that it was like, well, you showed some familiarity with the issues paper, you understood the main issues, whatever, and, well, you didn't really get to the point and tell me what you're going to do, but you sort of talked generally around the issues, and you're kind of there, okay, we'll give you a pass, and we'll give you this warning and this video to say, you've got to do better next time around. When you come to actually do your final paper, you've got to be more focused. You've got to come up front, right up front in that first paragraph. My core research question is this. Frame it as an argument. I am making the argument of this for this reason, backed up by this evidence. And to an extent, it doesn't even really matter what that argument is. I mean, you could take it, as long as you had some kind of argument to substantiate it, you could argue against what the issues paper is saying. Now, you'd have to make sure that they've done their job, so you'd have to do a pretty good job at finding a different vein of argument and a different vein of evidence to back that up. But you could do that. It's not really about necessarily what your analysis is. It's about the way in which you structure it. And this assignment has been deliberately structured to help you do that. I mean, you've been given almost all the research you need in that issues paper. And the good students, I know you'll be off there, you'll be reading extra articles, you'll be looking at additional sources, and that's great. And that's how you get the good marks, the top level marks. But for the people who are just sort of like struggling to get through the basics, all that foundation research has been done for you, and that was quite deliberate. So what you needed to then do, and this is why, the reason why we focused on choosing those questions out of the issues paper, was again, you've immediately got a narrowed question. Problem is, a lot of people took that narrow question and immediately went big again, and went straight from a focus on, say, the way in which an alcohol ban, for example, just to pick one of them, the way in which an alcohol ban could be administered, and went straight back into the big questions of, what is drink driving? Is it wrong? Is it right? We know it's bad, but what are we going to do about it? And all these things that you just can't possibly focus in on and answer in an assignment, or more importantly, in a real work situation where your boss says, what's this stuff with this, what's going on with recidivist drink drivers? Come back, give me the lowdown on the alcohol ban. Is it a good idea? Give me an opinion on that. And what you don't want to turn around, like you would with Steven Spielberg, you don't want to come back to your boss and say, well, what is drink driving? Now, there's been, you don't want to go back to those big vague generalities. You want to go straight into, okay, you've asked about the ban. Okay, the pros and cons of the ban argument are this, this, and this. This is the way I'm arguing that this is the position to take. This is the reason I'm using to argue that, and this is backed up by this evidence. So, getting back to the point, which is ironic because we're talking about getting to the point, the first reason I think people do this is bad habits. All the way through your education, you've had basically the kind of, look, here's a question, just throw enough stuff at the question and you'll make some marks up along the way. Because you've pointed to this, you've pointed to that, you've just basically touched on enough stuff, yeah, you can get by and pass. So we get reinforced in those bad habits, and bad habits are always hard to break out of, particularly when they get reinforced with reward for those punishment. So part of my job is to tell you to think about changing those bad habits, and to start changing the way you do things. Okay, I've said there are three reasons for this. The second, I think, is that people have a general lack of confidence, and that's understandable. You're just starting out in your career. Now, sometimes your lack of confidence is because of your own fault, because you haven't done enough of the basic baseline work. So that's something, and that's something I can't tell you much more except go back and do the basic work. There's always people who'll hand in an assignment which shows that they haven't read the basic material. In this case, there's been a number that clearly haven't read the issues paper at all. And there are some that, if they have read the issues paper, have not evidenced that in any way, have not shown me that they've read that paper. Now that's a problem, and that's, you're never going to be confident unless you've done your baseline work. Unless you're a sociopath, and that's a completely different issue. They're confident about everything. But the other thing is, there are people who are doing the work and they still lack confidence, and that's a matter of experience, and that's a matter of resilience, and that's a matter of being able to take a good hard look at yourself and go, look, I've done the work. I know what I'm saying here. I should have the confidence to come straight out and say, this is the way I'm handling this issue, this is my analysis. Okay, remember, this is my argument, this is my reasons, this is my evidence. You're only going to get that through practice, and you're only going to get that through building that confidence, but it will come. But I think it helps to be aware of those issues, and to be aware of the fact that it is your lack of confidence that's undermining you, that's making you preamble, and it's making you wander all over the place and pad the thing out. Okay, third point, and this is connected to that, is the fear of the blank page. When you've had a career of writing, like I've had, you end up writing a lot of stuff, and it gets easier and easier to fill up the pages with words. And I appreciate that at your start of your career, you might think, a whole page on analysis, a whole page on my plan, that's so much, I'll never get through it. And this will be also a problem going into the 2,500, 3,000 word final paper. It seems absolutely huge at the start, and the first sentence you write is always the hardest. But the problem, the flip side of this is, it becomes very hard to cut. Okay, the first sentence you write, the first paragraph you write, will no doubt be rubbish. It will no doubt be something that you will have to throw away before you finish a project. But that's okay. That's fine, because it's about getting over that hump and getting that writing process started and getting stuff on the page that you can then edit and reframe. The way this manifests in a few ways. One is that weird rambling preamble that people often do, because they've written all this stuff down while they've been thinking through an issue, and then you get to the point you go, I don't want to throw any of it away. I've done all that work. That took me hours to write that stuff. And basic literary theory: kill your darlings. You've got to you've got to be savage. You've got to take a good, long, hard look at yourself and what you've written and go, is this useful? And it doesn't matter how long you've worked on it. If it's not picking you up any marks, it has to go. It's just not worth doing it. So I think that's another problem is, and the flip side again. Lots of flip sides to this problem, but the flip side you get to this other problem is where people preamble. You say you've got a 2-page assignment, they'll preamble for 2.5 pages, and they'll run out of room in the last half a page because they suddenly realise they've got half a page left to cram everything in. They don't have enough room, and it is so hard sometimes to go back and cut, or to start with a fresh blank document to go, okay, this stuff is good. Now we need to pull out the good bits of it and reframe it and to lay it out in a way that I'm going to actually be able to find it that's more readable, and to set up a structure that is going to achieve my objective, rather than this kind of half-formed thing that I began with. So it's about that iterative process. It's about going back, and it's about putting down your first draft and going, yeah, that's it. That'll do for now, but now I have to look at it very seriously. And hey, I've spent 2 paragraphs, I'm talking about the alcohol ban, and I've spent 2.5 paragraphs talking about deterrence. Is that relevant? Well, it might be, but have I made it clear that that's relevant? Have I come back to my core, again, that core research theme, that core topic, and said, it's on your post-it note, sitting next to your computer, why am I saying this? Why am I going on this divergence? And unfortunately, often the reason why you're going on this divergent path is purely because you've written it down and you don't want to throw it away. So beware of that as well. Okay, so that was the first thing. It's taken me a long time to get to the point, about getting to the point, but I thought it's worth going through and emphasising that this is a problem that everyone has to a greater or lesser extent. It never goes away. What happens is you actually get better at managing it and better at dealing with it. So we know that we get we've often been rewarded in the past for these bad habits, at just sort of like throwing words at an issue and hoping some of them will get us some marks. We know that our own history is such that we don't have the confidence in ourselves yet to be able to make some of those decisions, but we need to learn how to do that. And we need to focus on being brave and resilient about those things and saying, you know what, I'm gonna make a decision here, and I'm gonna focus on this, and I'm gonna be very clear about it. And maybe that's not what the assessor wants, but it's better to actually be forthright about this than to just fuzz around the issue and not actually say anything. And the third is that fear of the blank page, which is the if I don't just waffle on, I'm never going to be able to make it to the word count. That shouldn't be a problem in something which is effectively a 2-page paper. That shouldn't be an obstacle to you. But I've seen again and again and again through this assignment, people will spend the first page just waffling around the issue. And that's literally a matter of, we could just throw that page away, because that's not doing you any good at all. It's not telling me anything. It's not getting you any marks. It's not putting anything out there that I can actually give you any feedback on. Now, that advice is not just for legal research. It's for all assignments. It's one of those things that you learn from experience. And when you see the students who perform really well, they're students who know how to do it. The students who are struggling don't know how to do it. How did the students who do well learn how to do that? I don't know. Maybe someone told them somewhere. Maybe they watched an instructional video. Maybe that some people are better at it than others. But it's something everyone can learn. So that was the main point I wanted to talk about here, is that whole issue of getting to the point. The other one I think is worth talking about briefly is the idea of critical analysis. We've talked about that a little bit in the start of the course. I just want to bring that up again. And if you haven't read the material on critical analysis, or if you've forgotten about it, go back and have a look at it again. Because again, there's a difference between, and the academic jargon we tend to use is descriptive versus analytical. And what a lot of people do, and this is linked into the waffle issue, is just be very descriptive. And it's the show and tell. It's where your paper comes out and says, well, someone thinks this, someone thinks this, someone thinks this, someone thinks this. Everyone thinks a lot of things. What we want, and sometimes you can get by scrape through with a pass for that stuff, but with what we want for the higher grades, and definitely employers are not going to be looking for people who just scrape through, let's face it. They're going to be looking for the higher achievers. What the higher achievers do is to be active in the way in which they argue. They're actually actively analytical. It's all about critical thinking and critical analysis. Okay, metaphor time again. You're probably all sick of my metaphors, but if you go to the mechanic and say, look, my car's stuffed, and they take it away and they say, yep, your car's stuffed. We've had a look at it and everything's stuffed. $3,000, please. You're not going to be very happy, are you? And that's what a lot of people do when they come to their legal work. They look at an issue and they go, yep, it's a terrible situation. Someone's got to do something about it. It's all really bad. And what we want you to be able to do is the same thing that we want the mechanic to be able to do. They want you to be able to point to problems, want you to be able to analyse the problems and come up with solutions to the problems. They want you to be able to say, and I'm not going to embarrass myself by attempting to talk about car mechanics, but they want you to be able to say, these are the specific things that are wrong with your car. This is what's going to cost you to fix them. Our recommendation is that you do this, this, and this. And the recommendation may be that you don't fix the car at all, you get another car. It's too badly gone. It's going to cost you too much money. That's what you want from a lawyer as well. Whether they be working with a client, or whether you be working with an organisation, or whether you be working in law reform. What you want is that analysis. You don't want show and tell. You don't want someone to lift the hood on your car and go, well, that's stuffed. That's pretty bad. Ooh, I don't like the look of that. And that's pretty bad as well. What you want is solutions, and that's, I think, the difference between the static descriptive approach and the analytic approach, which is what we want you to do. Anyway, I've talked enough. This has probably been a huge, long video. God knows if anyone's made it to the end. I will be making time available in the next few weeks for consultation times for you to book in, and I'm very happy for you to come and talk more about your assignment and more about these issues generally, because the whole point of the exercise is for you to learn things and to improve your skills going forward. So that will be available to you. That's part of the core service. It's quite surprising how few people take us up on those offers, and who actually come and talk to us about these issues. But if you are serious about where you're going, you're really serious about learning to do better, please come and talk to us about it. We're not marking you because we want to be mean to you or because we want to put you down or any of those things that you may feel when you see a mark that you get disappointed by and you think, oh, I thought I did better than that. Scott's just a terrible person who hates me and wants to see me suffer. It's not that at all. It's a diagnostic process where we look at things that are a problem. There's, again, get back to the mechanic. You know, your mechanic is not going to tell you your car's fine because they don't want to hurt your feelings and don't want you to feel bad because your car needs fixing. They're going to tell you, well, there are problems that need fixing and they need to help you fix those problems, and that's what we're here for as well.